Churleegurgleesh. Good luck to you. Let's get it going. Good luck. All right, we're black here. Knight f3. Knight c6. We'll probably see a Ruy Lopez here. Could also see an Italian game. The Scotch game. We have an Italian game. Okay. We'll play knight f6. And now I'm expecting d3. Because if he plays, if he plays anything other than d3, then I would have been very, very happy. Knight g5. Going into the fried liver attack. It is playable, but it can be very, very tricky for white. So I would be very happy going into that. We'll play bishop c5. We'll have a nice Giuoco Pianissimo. Churleegurgleesh. What's wrong with stuff other than d3 like c3? Well, if you play c3, I think that just hangs a pawn. Although maybe it's playable. Maybe c3 is playable. Okay, we see bishop g5. I don't think this is one of the main moves. I think one of the main moves is either c3 or castles. So I'm happy to see this bishop g5. Okay. We'll start with d6. Protecting this pawn. Buffalo saying, so basically all I have to do is not make one move mistakes. And I think I can improve to a better rating. Yeah, that is one way to get to a better rating. Single elimination is kind of lame. Single elimination can be exciting. Double elimination it's like single elimination, but it's like twice as exciting. Twice as exciting. Right. We're going to play a6. This does a couple things. First, we can drop our bishop back if we need to. And second of all, we're taking away the b5 square from his bishop. So we want to play knight a5 and pick up his bishop pair. But if we did it right away, he would have been able to play bishop b5 to a4, then c3 and bishop c2. So we wouldn't have been able to get his bishop. Now he makes an escape square for his bishop. It's possible he's watching the stream, but, you know, that's okay. If he wants to do that, then he can do that. I'm not going to be hiding anything because I want to try to make this an instructive experience. So we're just going to play the best that we can. Play the best that we can. Try to make things as instructive as possible. He makes some space for his bishop as well. Thinking about playing h6 here. h6, he backs up the bishop. And we could play g5. It's very aggressive. If we do that, he'll probably sack. I'll probably sacrifice. We could also play bishop e6. And we're happy if he takes, because these are good double pawns. Why are they good double pawns? So we don't mind these doubled pawns because this pawn on e6 controls two very important squares, which are f5 and d5, right? And you can imagine if white got a knight to either of these squares, maybe later in the game, especially if g5 has already been played, it could be very, very annoying for black. So if black has a pawn on this square, then it opens the opportunity to playing c5 and g5 without giving up these squares. And this pawn is very well protected. So we're not really at risk of losing it, right? It's not like the e file is going to open up, right? These pawns are stuck anyway. And we may even be able to play d5 later, and it just strengthens the center. So yeah, that's why they're good doubled pawns. The short reason is it strengthens the center, right? And that's going to be really important. And the long reason is, well, I just explained it. Yep. And the open F file. Yeah, I forgot about that. It also opens the F file if we castle. Right, but I can't decide right now. We'll start with H6. Just a nice improving move. I'm not expecting him to take. It will obviously be very nice if he does take. But I don't think he should, and I'm not expecting him to. He probably has better time management than me so far. You really should not have already spent a sixth of your time by move 7 in such a simple position. Okay, he moves back to E3, which is a little surprising to me. But that's okay. Now, we'll leave our bishop here for now. We might even play knight g4 and encourage him to take this. We could play bishop e6 ourselves. Or one thing we could do is play b5 and bishop b7. And I think that is going to be good. I think I want my bishop developed along this long diagonal. Only thing I maybe should be concerned about is this bishop coming to d5. But I think it should be okay. We play bishop b7. And I think I want to play c5 probably sometime. I could also play knight d4 here. But then he might take twice and play f4. And these pawns on f4 and e4, they would be a little bit menacing. Maybe too menacing for me. I don't know if I want to deal with that right now. We'll start with b5. See where he puts this bishop. Probably follow this up with bishop b7. Hop into them later in the game, which opens the opportunity for black to play g5 and c5 later in the game, and even d5. And it opens the f file for the rook to attack, right? So we would not want to take on e3 because white would then control the f4 and d4 squares and have the half open f file for their rook. And we would not really be able to attack this pawn very easily, right? We can attack it once, and that's really it. White can defend. We really won't be able to attack this. It's not really a weakness we can attack. Okay, this is fine. And e5 is maybe going to be weak. That was my main concern about allowing this trade, but I think overall it will be fine. I could play queen d6. Am I worried about c4? Not at all. It creates a huge weakness for him. Overprotect e5. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'll play queen d6, castles, and probably rook e8, rook fe8, and rook ad8. And I'll decide where I want this bishop. I'm still not exactly sure where I want this bishop. But we'll start with queen d6. Maintaining pressure on the d pawn so he can't immediately push c3. And overprotecting e5. Maintaining this d file pressure. There's one thing that I am keeping in mind long term, which is these pawns are, right now they're on light squares, and this one is on a dark square. And it's very possible that we end up with a structure kind of like this. And that will probably favor me in the endgame. Or that structure will certainly favor me in the endgame because we have the light squared bishop, so we want our pawns on dark squares for the endgame. Shout out to continuity. Well, if I play bishop g4, he'll play knight e3. I could play knight d4. He's probably going to play knight e3. That's what I would think. So he wants to hop into one of these squares. So I could play knight d4. I'll play c3. I don't really want my bishop on g6. It's not going to do anything on this diagonal. If I put it on b7, I allow him to hop into f5. Which is also very unideal. Very unideal. I could play knight d4. This allows for the option of playing c6. He'll just play c3 though. I would have to take... Probably don't want to do that. There. Takes, knight d4. He has to come back. I've also got this move b4. But that move doesn't have a threat. Really doesn't do anything. Looking at some knight maneuvers, he can simply play g3 to stop it. Which probably doesn't do much. I don't know. Maybe we do put our bishop on g6. We allow him to play g4. Feels wrong. Because then, if he takes us, his pawns are already connected. We play g6. What's wrong with us doing that? We're just weakening our king side. Might have some long-term implications. h4, h5. g6, h4. We then have bishop g4, knight e3. Bishop e6. Kind of stumped at what to do here. It might seem like a simple position, but white's got some serious plans that I don't want to just allow him to do. Knight d4. He plays c3. Knight d4, c3, takes with a queen, bishop g4, queen g3. Probably not. It's probably not good. If we castle kingside, we might get pawn stormed. We don't have a good way of opening up the center. Bishop, I'm having trouble with this bishop. Bishop b7. Bishop e6. It forces him to take. He gets a knight to f5. And we can play knight e7. It doesn't really force him to take, but if he doesn't take, then his rook is a little bit misplaced. It'll definitely be annoying for him later. Okay. We will take, misplace his rook, and play knight e7. To stop the knight from coming to an annoying square. Is that too passive? Knight f5. Knight f5 really must be stopped. Does it? Does it have to be stopped? We could play g6. That's the other way of stopping it. It allows knight h4. Probably g6 is actually better. We might even castle queenside here in this game. g6. Stopping knight f5. I'm happy. I'm happy with how I spent my time there. I thought that was a critical moment. Maybe you disagree, but I thought it was important to spend the time there. Whole position feels kind of rough now. I feel good about it. I think it's a great position for us, actually. Love our nice little pawn chain here. We have a great pawn structure. What are you talking about? Our pawn structure is fantastic. It is fantastic. Now I'm thinking we play knight d4. Yeah, this feels like a very typical Giuoco Pianissimo type pawn structure. Except there's no bishops left, which should benefit black because there's no bishop on this diagonal, which is often very, very strong. And white's rook is misplaced. So overall, I'm happy with the position. I think this is our plan. But if he plays c3, that is going to be annoying because we don't really want to take. So maybe we start with... Do we castle queenside? Or do we play rook d8? That's basically the question right now. If we castle queenside, he plays a4. We have to play b4 to keep the a file closed. Then we can't really... we can't really play c4, which is probably not going to be super good. So I'm thinking I like rook d8 more. If he could still castle queenside, it would be a much harder decision. Because then he might castle queenside and try to storm me on the king side. Because my king side is weaker, and I think I would not want to go into that. But since he can't castle queenside anymore, he's either stuck in the center or stuck going kingside. If we both castle kingside, a pawn storm on the king side from him will be much less effective. It will either be much less effective as an attack, or it will just be bad for him. Continue applying pressure to the position with our pieces. We might play knight d4 next move, because then he can't play c3. That's one of the benefits of rook d8. Now if knight d4, c3, we just take... I guess there's actually queen takes, and our knight is hanging. This is actually still quite tricky. Where do I put my king now that I've played h6 and g6? Yeah, kingside is still fine. Kingside is still very fine here. I think I sort of answered that question already. h7/g7 should be fairly safe squares in a lot of these lines. Okay, they castle. We have this move c4. c4 takes, 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 takes. If a4, we play b4. e5 is still defended. Kind of just breaking down the center. And it looks good to me. c4. Clarifying things. His rook is still misplaced. I think I like it. I think I like it. If he plays d4, we can take that. Right? I think we can. What if he takes with the knight? We take here. Takes, takes. Rook e1. We can play f5. That should be fine. That should be really good. Okay. Let's go for it. c4. Perfect. Perfecto. Castle before opening the center. Normally, that is what you want to do. But if the center opens up right now, we're going to be getting a queen trade anyway. So our king will be fine in center. Or it'll actually be beneficial for our king to be in the center. And if he doesn't, then we can always castle in one move. Our kings should be fairly safe. So if we can win a pawn and then castle and be super safe, then I'm definitely super okay with that as well. One move they may be considering is knight e1. But then I think I can take on e4. Well, I would probably take here first, and then I'd take on e4. And that would win a pawn. I think we should definitely trade queens. The queen trade will benefit us for the reason we just said. Our king is still in the center, so if we can get to the endgame, the king in the center should be beneficial. His rook still out of play here. Yeah. We should take this. Perfect. The benefit of all of these trades is our king's still in the center. We undouble our pawns. His rook is out of play. We get a very nice active knight. He has a passive knight. This should be slightly better for black. If he pushes a4, my original plan was just to push b4. But it gives him a passed pawn, a connected passed pawn. I don't know if okay. He played knight e3. I don't know if that is actually a good move. Maybe I'll start with f6, just controlling these knights. Trying to control these knights. Knight d5, and I can play king d7. Okay, we'll start with f6. Playing the endgame here. Playing the endgame. Probably going for d5. Yeah. White does get the 3-on-2 queenside majority. They do. They do. Gotta activate this guy. I want to activate my rook here. Knight d5. That's a good question. Good question. Knight d5. It's a very obvious move. I expect him to play it. If he plays knight d5, we'll play king d7 to defend our c7 spot. f6 is defended by the knight on e4. And we'll be threatening king d6. So if he plays something like rook a1, we might have to play knight e7. Because if knight d5, king d7, rook a1, king d6, he just plays rook d1. And we're screwed. So knight d5, king d7. Rook a1. I don't expect him to play rook a1. I think it's probably not a super great move. We could also play rook h7, which is actually, it doesn't look like that bad of a move. But he's going to play knight h4. If I do this, he might actually be able to sack for these 2 pawns and get the 3 connected pass pawns. That would probably be good. He'll play knight h4 next. The nice thing, though, is he can't make any more progress after knight h4, rook g8. What is he doing? He can't do anything else on the king side. And then I'll be able to kick this knight out of here, and it should be fine. Should be fine. King d7. Got to protect this c7 spot. I'm just noticing now that he wants to play f3 and eat my knight. And when my knight is eaten, his knight is also defended. So I might be losing a pawn unless I play g5. So how can I counter attack now? Okay, we may have blundered a pawn. We can attack both spots. Okay. He can still play immediately f3 here, which might be tricky. Except maybe he can't, because then both of his ponies would be attacked. Why not just knight e7? Then if f3, you just trade knights, their pawns become less coordinated. If I played knight e7, then he can do the simple knight takes e7, and I can't take back because knight takes g6 is a fork on my king and my rook. Right? I can't take back. So that would be a big problem. That's why I didn't play knight e7. Yeah. Okay. So this is going to force one of the knights back to e3. Is that correct? Is that correct? That should be beautiful. He'll probably move the f knight back to e3 so that he maintains the c7 pressure. And then I'll probably do something like this to keep this guy defended, followed by knight d4. And I think this should be good. We've got the weak spot defended. This spot is a little hard to target. We can always push it to h5. And we're gonna get this guy on c7 rolling soon. We've got very active knights. A rook soon to be activated. Hopefully it can be activated faster than his rook, which I think it will be able to. Definitely a sharp endgame here. Sharp endgame. Can't recommend queen takes f2 checkmate. Oh my goodness. I totally didn't even see that move. Didn't even see that move. The double O, sorry. Double O. Yeah, it's just... You shouldn't suggest moves just to try to respect the players of the game. Like, if you guys suggest a move that I didn't see, then it's just a really bad situation. Because if I play it, that's kind of unfair to my opponent. I think we just go with rook h7, right? Keep some defense here. a4, b4, knight c4. I'm not worried about this. This knight needs to hold some defense. Move I might be worried about is knight b4. I certainly can't trade that there. I'd probably play knight d4. But I maybe will play knight a5, looking to come into c4. Is f5 a potential move? I feel like it might be. Threaten f4. You can move this horse, the pony. Knight b4 is really his only escape. But if he plays a4, b4, pawn to c4, then he solidifies the knight, which might not be good. But then we play knight a5, c6. And that should be okay. Even then, the knight actually gets trapped. Knight b6, rook b7. Knight c8, king d7, the knight's trapped. So knight would have to come to a8, and then the knight is still trapped. It might take a while to win. We may be able to win the knight. What does knight a5 do? The main purpose of knight a5 for black is remaneuvering the knight to c4. Oh, but in the calculation that I was saying, so a4, b4, pawn c4, knight a5, it pressures c4 and it prevents b3. And it blocks a4. So that's actually, those are the three reasons why knight a4 is to be played. Because then this knight is tied down to the pawn. So then I might have ideas of f5, f4 to kick the knight away. And then I take this and the knight's hanging. I'm feeling good about the position. Our pawns are further advanced. Our king is more active. Our rook is more active. So I think if either side has an advantage here, it's probably black. Okay. We cannot allow the a file to open, so we must play b4. I hope that move wasn't a blunder. Is his knight trapped now? Are we... So what might happen here is, if this knight moves, he loses this knight. This knight can't move anywhere safely, and he can't stop f4. So he's actually losing a knight here, but I'm going to have to sack my knight for his a-pawn. So... it's really just a trade. It's one of those fancy trades. So this is probably going to be good for me. But I can't say much about this. I'm curious to see how this will pan out. I'm also curious to see the computer evaluation at the end of this game. Oh, shoot. I just realized. Takes. He has this move. And we have two knights for the rook, so that's actually okay. I actually didn't see this move, knight takes b4, until after I had played f4, but should be okay. Okay. The other move is takes here. Takes here immediately. So takes, push. Takes there. Sorry. We wouldn't do that. Takes, push, rook a1. Takes, king f1. Rook f7 doesn't work. Dang, rook f7 is like what we really would want to play. So takes, there. I think that's okay. Takes, push. He comes back, there. That should be good. Okay. We'll take, because we're going to get a queen too here. Maybe, if he lets us. You think the computer's going to say 3,000 blunders? I always hope for no blunders, because if you play a game with no blunders, 0-0-0, that always feels really good. But on the other hand, blunders are not bad, because with every blunder is a learning opportunity. Blunders are not necessarily bad. Okay. Well, we'll take with the pawn. I think this should be winning after king d6. Because now our plan is rook f7, knight g3. And the secondary plan is rook f7, knight d2. Which is not checkmate, but we still get a queen. Right? So if he tries to stop our primary plan, we've still got the backup plan. And king d6 is an important first move to make because we need to avoid knight d8. So if he continues here with a7, we obviously won't take the knight. We'll just play rook f7. And then we're threatening checkmate in 1, so he can't promote, and this should be good. I'm curious to see like how much stronger do I actually play when I'm actually focusing 100% of my focus on the game. Because obviously, whenever you're streaming, not 100% of your focus is on the game. Some of it is on your stream. Even if it's a very small amount, that's actually an incredibly good move that I missed. Oh no. Okay. We may be putting in the sack here, bros. We might be putting in the sack. a7, rook f7. That's brilliant. It's a nice tactic. It's a nice tactic. But right now, he can just play that move. Can he? Okay, we'll play king e7. Knight c6, king f6. Rook a1. We've got rook d2. But then he's actually got g4, which I missed that move. We may have just blundered because I missed g4. Hopefully, I think all we can do now is hope. But I think he might see it. He's playing pretty well. Okay, well, now we still have the option to take the knight. We play here, he plays g4. There. Takes. Oh, I think we won. I think we just won the game, right? Did we not just win the game? Because it's a discovered double check and the queen is protected. Sweet. All right. What's up? What's up? Rook d2. Rook d2. There we go. You can throw in one check, but I don't think it does anything. g4 check there. Check. Takes. Checkmate. I don't think you can stop that. Ooh, even get the queen. a8 queen. Can we checkmate down a queen? Was it luck? I think that's a good philosophical question. I think there is some elements of luck in chess. I think this game we did get a tiny bit lucky, but I think for the most part, there was little luck in this game. It feels super lucky. Sometimes these really, really sharp positions can feel really lucky, but that's just the nature of sharp positions. He's insane. Okay. Just double checking here. I'm not blundering anything. I don't think it matters. D6 or F6. I don't think it matters. Because we've got our forced checkmate. So it shouldn't matter. There are no checks. Check. Check. We did not get the checkmate. That's okay. Churleegurgleesh. Good game. Good game. Whew. All right. Really good game. All right. Wow. Yeah, this was a very nice game. Very nice game. And we made some blunders. For the most part, the beginning of the game was very accurate, though. Which is nice. So let's take a look. Okay. This is all theory here. D6. A6. A3. H6. B5. And as of B5, it was a completely new game. So B5, bishop takes C5, D takes C5. This structure might look a little bit weird if you're not used to it. And I will admit that I used to think this structure was bad for black. But then I faced it a couple times. And my opponents actually, they survived pretty well. And I was like, huh, maybe it's not so bad. So I looked into it and it's not that bad. So now I play it. The computer agrees. The computer thinks it's completely fine. Queen d6. This was all good from both of us. And castling was his first mistake. A small inaccuracy. And I had an opportunity with... Oh, I could have won a pawn. I missed winning a pawn with queen e6. Because the rook is hanging, and then I can play knight takes e4. Oh, I missed that one. It's a discovered pin and an attack on the rook. So a small missed tactic there. Best move by a tiny bit. And then we can grab the pawn. Not bad, not bad. Ooh, wow. And then you have to sacrifice the exchange. Well, you have to. Because otherwise you get forked. But white has to sack the exchange back. Wow. Look at this line. What a crazy line. If white saves the rook, then there's knight g5. And the main things about this position are the d4 square and this isolated d pawn is definitely going to be a target for black later. So black actually, they're not actually down any material. They have a knight and 2 pawns for the rook. And they've got this really beautiful d4 square. So, and a really great center in the pawn. They've got this... Black has got this really beautiful d4 square and a great center with the pawns. So, okay. Crazy line that I did not see with queen e3. Okay, I played c4, though, which is the second best move. And this was good. This was, I think, an okay trade. And this was all good here. And here, I played g5, but I could have played king d6. And he would not have been able to take, actually. I actually completely overlooked this move, king d6. Because if he takes, I just play rook g8. And both of his knights are hanging, so he loses a piece. So I could have done this, and then I would have been able to play knight e7, because he doesn't have to remove the defender tactic. So this would have been slightly better. g5 was a small mistake. Knight f e3. I played rook h7, which was a small mistake by me, because it allowed this sequence of moves, which happened in the game. And he has f3, which counterattacks my knight and equalizes. Now he could push, or he could play knight g4, and either are winning. I would have to sacrifice my knight, and I wouldn't be down any material here, but I would have this isolated pawn. And this might be a weakness. White's rook is really active as well. The knight restricts my king, so the engine gives slightly better for white here. But they didn't go for that. They went for knight takes b4, which was the move that I was worried about. But turns out it was actually no good. And here, I should have played rook d7 straight away. But it was because I missed knight d8. But apparently rook a4 is also winning. Which makes sense because I have to move my knight. So I should have played rook d7. And this was a big time tactic. Rook d7. The computer announces a checkmate in 9. Checkmate in 9 moves after rook a1. Because of rook d2. We had this very similar mating net. So we did get a little bit lucky with this. Here he has to play rook a3, which is a really, really difficult move to find. right? Preventing knight g3. Because now I can play king e7. Not taking the knight. And it's just a checkmate in a couple more moves. There's nothing he can do. Oh no, my king.